What's going on, everyone? So let's talk about Io Dosunmu from the Chicago Bulls. He's a guy that I really do think the Lakers should at least be targeting. Obviously, I want Zach Lavine, talk about Nikola Vucevic recently, but Io makes a lot of sense for the Lakers, and I do think he's obtainable, right? There has already been talks about the Chicago Bulls may being willing to give up an Io, even include him in a Zach Lavine deal. Personally, for me, that would be ideal. Get Zach Lavine, get Io. You basically have your, backcourt for now and the next, 5+ years, in my opinion, if you were to do that. Io, 6'5", got good size, good length, point of attack, defense, athleticism, can apply rim pressure, basically do everything you need. And Chicago, they got to kind of figure out what they're going to do with their guard position. But let's remove Zach Lavine from this conversation because I talk about Zach Lavine enough. I want to stick just solely to Io because the Lakers need guys like that, right? There's talks about like a Malcolm Brogdon and a Bruce Brown. And in all honesty, for now, those guys make more sense. They just have more experience, operate in the role. But you could still go get those guys and go get Io. Again, he's only making $7 million. So you could easily get him. Imagine him and Max Christie as your backcourt for the future, just athleticism, defensively, right? Both guys developing into like real 3-point threats. Like they could make some noise. And Io's had some really good games this season. He had a game where he got dropped like 27, right? Like the potential's there. But you look at Chicago and they have so many guards. Obviously they have Kobe White, Lonzo Ball. They need to figure out what they're going to do. Zach Lavine, right? They went and got Josh Giddey. They have like DJ Stewart, who's a young guy that's trying. They still have Carter. Obviously, Io on the list. You're talking about 6, 7, 8 guys. Taylor Horton Tucker is another guy that they have. Chris Dort, although he could play the 3, but still, like they have like 6, 7, 8 guys at the guard position. And they're going to have to pay Giddey. So he's going to be your guy, your starting point guard for now and the future. So Kobe White is probably going to be your 2 guard for now and the future. Right? And if they're not able to trade Zach Lavine, I mean, Lonzo Ball, they could let walk in the offseason. Like, is Io really going to want to come off the bench for the next 5 years or whatever? Probably not. I mean, he'd be coming off the bench for the Lakers, but 1, he'd be able to contend, and 2, hey, you're our guy, right? You don't have to worry about Kobe White. You don't have to worry about Josh Giddey. You're it. You're the guy. Just be patient. Got to ride through this era for us, and then that's it. I'm stepping up. Me and Max Christie, we're the backcourt. Maybe have like a Dalton Connect and go get a center and all that stuff, right? Like that is, if you're Io, that's the incentive as to like, okay, well, why come off the bench for the Lakers when I'm coming off the bench for the Bulls, right? Wouldn't he want to go to a place like that? Just for those that may end up going like, oh, well, why would he want to go either way, right? I just think Io gives you what you need. He's still very young, 24 years old, right? And you kind of look at what he's done this season for Chicago, right? So getting into the meat and potatoes here, getting into the numbers. So again, he is in year 4, and he is played 30 games, all 30 games. He's averaging 31 minutes per game. He is shooting, he's getting 10 field goal attempts per game, 49% from the floor. Oh, and by the way, he's only started 17 out of those 30, so half the games. He is shooting 32% from three-point range, which is not great on 4.2 attempts. But last season, he shot 40% on 3.9 attempts. But also his just opportunity has been very different this season, especially, again, they got Giddey and all these other guys, right? Lonzo's back. He's kind of been the odd man out in a lot of ways. So I do think he can improve and get better. From 2-point range, 61.1% on 5.8 attempts. He has an EFG of 55.7%, which I think is huge. Shooting 80% from the foul line on, round up, say 2 attempts per game. Rebounds, he's averaging 4 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal, half a block, and 13 points per game. Right? Like, so if he can be that on the Lakers, but you also got to think he'd be slotted alongside LeBron James and Anthony Davis, which is very different than being slotted alongside, like I said, a Josh Giddey and a Nikola Vucevic. Right? Like, I just think the opportunity would be better for him. I think he provides what the Lakers need, particularly in that backup role. And the Lakers are probably going to have a need at the backup guard position. Right? If the Lakers pull off a trade, Gabe Vincent and D'Angelo Russell are probably 2 guys that are going to end up going out. right? Let's say we get a Bruce Brown or a Malcolm Brogdon. You're still going to probably have a need at that backup role. Now, there's been talks about, a Dennis Smith Jr. or, a Markelle Fultz or like an Alfred Payton, right? And those would be low risk, high reward. I wouldn't mind that. But if you could go, say you go get the Wizards trade, just for argument's sake, right? And you get Brogdon, Kuzma, Jonas Valanciunas, right? Okay, now you need that backup guard. Brogdon's going to be your starter. I mean, you could even have Brogdon come off your bench, just make it $23 million, right? So 22 and a half, right? So you're probably starting him, right? Well, okay, you still could use, like I said, the bench depth, and you could still use that. And him being only $7 million, you could still go and acquire him, still go get him, and clear some money off their books, right? You could add a Jalen Hood-Schifino and maybe stack a guy or two, like Jalen Hood-Schifino, Maxwell Lewis. Here's another Wayne, and then we'll give you, a couple seconds, and because you're not giving up a first for him, you give a couple seconds, and then Jackson Hayes or something like that. Boom, there you go. You're at the $7 million. You're actually over the $7 million. There you go. They could just waive Jackson Hayes and keep waive one of their random guys that they have just at the end of the bench, and then now you have Maxwell Lewis and Jalen Hood-Schifino to grow and develop. Jalen Hood-Schifino's another guard. Yes, I know, I get it, but they could look to move him, or they could let Lonzo and all these guys come out the books, and then now you have him as a backup, which he's not anywhere close to being ready as a starter. Where Ayo is a guy that you could justify, like, not on a great team. Like, Ayo's not a guy you're starting if you're trying to contend, but on some of these bad teams, he definitely would start. I think he'd be much better than what we've seen on Chicago. It's just, again, he's kind of the odd man out with the Bulls. And trying to find those good value options, right? One of the things that I get asked about a lot, particularly in like live streams and various comments on videos and stuff, is like, what's the guy that no one's really talking about? What's the guy? Because you keep hearing the same kind of cluster of names over and over and over again, right? And it's just kind of like, okay, well, like you look at Rui, right? Like one of the big things was like, I got the Laker Damas nickname was because I was like, hey, what about Rui? No one's talking about Rui. There's no reports about Rui, but Washington wants to get rid of Rui. Like, he would be perfect for the Lakers. And then, like, literally, I think it was like 2 hours later, Lakers ended up trading for Rui. And everyone's like, oh, you got a crystal ball, right? And then did the same thing with D'Lo, stuff like that, right? Obviously, I talk a lot about trades. I'm talking about, like, things that were, like, outside of the box that were just my thoughts, right? Ever since then, every year people ask, like, okay, what's a guy that's outside of the box? Cody Martin and Ayo are kind of the two guys that I have mentioned heavily. Maybe I'll do a more in-depth on both, kind of like, here's my three guys that, no one's talking about that I think would be great for the Lakers. But again, just trying to find those value guys that are cheap, right? Like I've talked about with Cody Martin. He's $8 million. Ayo is $7 million, right? Like, it's $15 million combined. You could you could technically get both, right? Get a Brogdon, a Valanciunas, and a Kyle Kuzma. That is, off the top of my head, you're talking $22.5 million, talking another $23 million. So let's just say $46 million. Let's call it $56 million. Let's say you have to send out $60 million, right? Well, D'Lo and Rui get you halfway there. Throw in a Jared Vanderbilt, right? So there's 35, 45. Gabe Vincent, there's 56, right? And then throw in a vet minimum guy or whatever, and then you're basically there, and you freed up enough space to clear a roster spot or two. You're doing like a 5 for 3 trade. So you have like 2 roster spots you need to fill. But then again, you could go take like I said, Maxwell Lewis, Jalen Hood-Schifino, and whatever else, to go get an Ayo or go get a Cody Martin and kind of bring them in, get another versatile, just athletic player. Ayo, I think, would be great in that role because of his age, right? He's 24, plenty of upside. He's already proven in the league. He's a guy that, again, he's averaging 12 a game, kind of as like the outcast on that team, just kind of in spots, right? And it's so, like, I just think he'd be so much better on this Lakers team because he would be what the Lakers need, right? And again, him and Max Christie off the bench as like, and then they're your backcourt of the future. I think you'd be in great shape, right? Start running Ayo a little bit more with Anthony Davis to kind of build that chemistry, build that camaraderie, right? And just see like what you could get, because that's what the Lakers need. They need that's what the hope Jalen Hood-Schifino would be, right? That athletic, sizable guard that could play either guard spot And I mean, you could really even slot in at the 3 on occasion, but could basically be that sizable guard that gives you athleticism, gives you rim pressure, right? Make plays to be a piece for the future. Well, fortunately, Jalen Agifino didn't work out that way. Bring in, again, an Io. He's a guy that would give you that. And I don't think you'd have to sell the farm to go get him. He's cheap enough to where you could have an impact. It's just, again, it's under the radar. It's low key, right? All these other teams are kind of competing and fighting over all these other guys. Kind of just let everyone fight over those guys and go get these other guys that can have an impact and would matter, right? I said, go get, an Io, and you'd be surprised. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, and I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? You like the idea of Io? Do you think no? Stay away from Io. Not the answer. Not the guy. Rather spend that $7 million elsewhere. Do you think get Io even over some of these guys? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are. I'd love to hear it either way. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Lets me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.